Hello, everybody. Today's guest is Dr. Sukhi. Dr. Sukhi is a friend of mine. He is a professional. He lives in West Vancouver. He's a father. He's a husband. He owns a chiropractic center in West Vancouver. He's an author. He's completed 10 Ironman. That's crazy. A couple of them in his 50s. He's done so much. And this conversation dips in and out of all of that. It's a good one, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. There wasn't really an official introduction. We just started talking, and I hit record, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to stop the flow. We're just going to go. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Dr. Sukhi's a great man, and has lots of wisdom to share with us all. So, without further ado, let's get into this episode.
But yeah, I have kind of unique perspectives that I think are kind of, different. And they're kind of based on neurophysiology in terms of how we rub up against challenges and what starts to happen for us and to us. And, it's not the common conversation out there. And, someone has to ask me, like you asked me, I almost feel like bad for like saying when people ask me like, how you doing? I'm like, honestly, like I'm living my best, most awesome life. Like I really am. And that's not by accident. And there's a reason why I am that despite what's going on, in the world around us. I'm not oblivious. I don't have my head in the sand. I get it. Like things are challenging for a lot of people. And we're kind of in it as a society.
Yeah.
And in so many ways, like I almost just think, from everything that happened in 2020, we're now seeing a change of so much in terms of systems from like, everything, government, politics, education, how things are being delivered. I just watched a video 2 weeks ago on how if you're in med school, you should probably drop out because, in 3 years, they're going to have these robots, fully functional, master surgeons.
Yeah.
They could work 24/7 around the clock.
And absolutely precisely perfect.
Precise. That would take, and I was sitting there talking to Kate, and I was like, think about it. Like my journey, I spent 11 years in post-secondary school. It's like, you do your undergrad, you go to med school, that's 8 or 10 years, depending if you're on point or not. You do a residency, that's another 4 to 8 years. So you're looking at like 12 to 16 years, and you're still not at the level of mastery.
Yeah.
It takes so long to develop a human to be a master at this sort of thing. But like everything's getting disrupted.
Yeah. And mastery is, we're still susceptible to human, I didn't sleep well last night, or,
Totally.
forgot the knife inside the body. I had a bit of a moment there, or whatever, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Yeah, the landscape is changing at a rate of knots. Like it's fast. Because I often talk about this, and I think when we were kids, because we were kids at the same time, right? And innovation was happening, but it happened like with big space between it. Like we grew up with tapes, and then I remember the transition from tapes to compact to CDs, and it was like a big deal. But there was a lot of years where we just lived on tapes, and then was a lot of years where we lived on CDs, and then the invention of the iPod came. But now it's like every week there's a new development and it's like super, super advanced. And I feel like the old man in the room, because I'm like, I don't want to be part of it. I'm like, I'm done. I'm checked out. Like it's just too much. Like overwhelm.
Yeah. And, I guess what I would say is the analogy that I would use, and I share this with people, things are moving faster. Information is moving faster. Technology is happening. We don't know, where the end game is. I always facetiously say, like, oh yeah, in the movie The Matrix, the bad guys were called agents. We're building agents.
AI agents.
We're building AI agents now.
Yeah.
I believe based on, my research and what I've been doing, we're actually going to see the first person create a $1 billion company with 0 employees.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see that
Mm-hmm.
because these agents you can literally create dozens and dozens, hundreds of agents that act like employees.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fascinating where this is going so quickly. But, I'll share with you, we're in a phase of life where we're not starting, we've passed the midpoint. So, I'm not giving up anytime soon, but we're kind of on our way out, being in our early mid 50s.
Like you and
And,
me.
like
Yeah.
like in
Yeah.
terms of like, life, career,
Yeah.
and ambitions, like, sure, you can still create things, but in
The
the
drive
grand
is
scheme of things,
diminishing. Yeah.
20s, 30s, you're kind of building, 40s, you're kind of sustaining, then 50s, you're hitting that plateau. And as you moved into your late 50s,
Mm-hmm.
60s, 70s, you're kind of navigating through your way out. And the analogy that I always use, Joby, is that, it's kind of like when email came about, people were like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stick
Mm-hmm.
with the traditional snail mail.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually knew some of these people, and
Mm-hmm.
man, did they suffer when,
Yeah. Yeah.
the snail mail thing just wasn't working anymore. And they realized by force they had to get up to speed with this thing called email. So for me, knowing the phase of life that I'm in, I'm staying relevant for that reason. So I look at it just enough so I'm relevant, and probably more importantly, so I can guide my children. Like my daughters, are 12 and 9 years old. One of my daughters is entering, high school, grade 8 next year.
Mm.
And, the conversation starts to happen like, university, this, that. And I'm like, I don't even know if university is going to be a thing in 5 years. But what I will say, I'm an advocate of lifelong education. You have to educate yourself. You've got to keep growing, keep learning. But what that looks like, I don't know if it's in the institution of a traditional college university
Mm-hmm.
with the disruption that's happening with technology.
Mm.
And that's the
Mm.
piece that, I'm really sharing, with my girls is like, well, get over that when you hit grade 12, you're done. Because actually, that's where it starts.
Mm.
That's what you now have the foundation, and now you need to more solidify that foundation with
Mm.
continued education to live your purpose. Ultimately
Yeah.
for me, it's like, how do you be of service to the world? How do you live your purpose? Because ultimately, that's the thing that's going to bring you joy. It's
Yeah.
not going to be from, a YouTube short or scrolling on social media. In fact, we know the opposite happens of that. Right?
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting to navigate our children through this because yeah, like massive sea change, right? Like you go to university, get a job as a doctor, and but in actual fact, all those jobs, those clerical jobs, like lawyer's assistant, or they're all going to be obsolete.
Mhm.
I strongly believe that the one thing that AI won't be able to replace is what I call texture, and that's like you can go onto Spotify now and listen to incredible AI generated music. And I've heard some of it and it's bonkers. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so good. But as soon as I know there's AI, what happens inside me is I reject it because I want to know the texture. Like if an AI bot writes a song about a breakup, it's like you've never struggled in your life. Like you've never
Yeah.
been through struggle. And I think something about humans, we love to know the backstory to everybody. I mean, that's why we're talking now. Like, what's the backstory behind Suki? It's
Yeah.
with AI, you can't, it's all contrived. It's not real. Like they don't struggle. They don't have
Right.
hardship. So I think that humans will kind of revert, but kind of have a need for that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, but, yeah, I
Well,
don't
I
know.
mean, that leads me like into, a segue, and ultimately what I do is I specialize in the nervous system. I mean, 25 years ago when I left school, started my career, I did call myself a nervous system specialist, and people looked at me cross-eyed. They're like, "What? Nervous what?" Here we
Yeah.
are in 2026 and people do a weekend workshop and they're a nervous system specialist. I find that funny. But it's a game that I've been in for 25 years
Mm,
because I know that the greatest technology on the planet lives inside the human nervous system. I mean, it creates
mm,
over 10,000 new cells every day. And early in my schooling, I realized, well, I don't think we need to figure out how to fix things. We just need to learn how to cultivate and nurture this intelligence that animates every cell, tissue, organ, our mind, our emotional
mhm,
state, our behavior, the choices we make. All of it's regulated by our nervous system. And the piece that I'll share about our nervous system is our nervous system is anti fragile. So, this was brought about by an author in 2012 named Taleb, and he talks about organized systems as being anti-fragile. And I'll give you an example. Like, if you have a candle and a wind comes, the wind's going to blow out the candle. That candle is fragile.
mhm,
And the reality is most people live their life like a candle. If you have a bonfire or a forest fire or bonfire is anti-fragile because if a wind comes along, it actually enhances the fire. And now if we bring that to the nervous system, experiences, i.e. stresses, challenges, Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, I've read his poems, if you will. He has a book on Stoicism, and he talks about the obstacle is the way. And when challenges, anything that happens outside of our bandwidth of our nervous system, it creates the opportunity for anti fragility because it's those experiences that allow the nervous system to continue to adapt, to evolve. And the nervous system actually goes through neurogenesis and neuroplasticity.
mhm,
It's like the nervous system craves experiences just at the edge and slightly outside our bandwidth. And, I'll give you a real world example. If we have all these experiences and we go through life and nothing is outside of our bandwidth, everything's within it. So we're in our comfort zone, if you will. The nervous system doesn't evolve, doesn't grow, doesn't develop, and it quadruples down on those neural pathways in terms of how we think, how we feel, how we respond to life. You do that for 20 years, that is the perfect recipe for a midlife crisis. And
mhm,
that's what happened. That's what it is because the growth and evolution, which is based on what our nervous system wants, is not happening. And
mhm.
it says, that's it, like house, white picket fence, the job, I get up, I go to work, I come home, I do
Mm.
this, I flick on the TV. In our day, the newspaper,
Yeah, yeah.
today, the social media in one hand, the TV in the other.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's like, knowing that, like this concept of moving towards the obstacle, moving towards the challenge, um, it's actually how we're built. It's how our neurophysiology is built.
So
And
are you saying that the nervous system craves challenge then to grow, and when you stop giving it challenge, it starts to deplete or
so
it starts to shut down?
So, shut down's probably a strong word, but
Mm,
think of it like this, Joby, where when it's having experiences within its bandwidth, okay?
mhm,
So that's like the comfort, anything that's comfortable in your life, right?
mm,
It's within those neural pathways keep laying down new neural pathways, but there's no growth and evolution.
mm,
Let me give you a simple example. Like there was a time you and I were young boys, we didn't know how to ride a bike. The people who cared for us, they bought us a bike, probably had training wheels. We were
mhm,
young little boys.
mhm,
And we're like, okay, we hopped on it. We put our hands on the handlebars, our feet on the pedals, and we were actually going through an experience that was a little bit uncomfortable
mhm,
because our nervous system hadn't done that before. Neural pathways to pedal, to steer, to use vision, to not hit a telephone pole. And then we got pretty good at that. And then the people who cared for us say, great, we're going to take the training wheels off now.
mhm,
Training wheels came off, and now a new level of proprioception balance had to develop. When that developed, eventually we could ride a two-wheel bike. And that's like a program that stays in our autonomic nervous system. Once we've learned how to ride a bike, once we've learned how to brush our teeth, go to the bathroom, drive our vehicle, the same thing. We don't
mhm,
have to think about it. And when we don't have to think about it, we're constantly pulling these programs. But if the nervous system keeps pulling old programs and doesn't develop new programs, what happens is it deactivates input to the endocrine system. And when it does that, it changes the neurotransmitters, neuropeptides, hormones, and enzymes to not feel happy, joy, excitement, inspiration, enthusiasm, gratitude. It's like our human emotions are a product of our neurophysiology. Whereas when we learn something new, and it can be anything, like a new task we learn how to do, like me, I'm an endurance athlete, and
Mhm.
being East Indian, I was never taught how to swim. I learned how to swim in my mid 30s. Like literally, I was pretty good at not drowning, but I literally could not swim. I had zero swim lessons. And I came to this being a former hockey player that transitioned into a runner, an ultra runner. And I mean, I was like on the podium for 100-mile ultra marathons, Joby. And I went into the pool and I was getting beat by 6-year-old kids. Like, no joke. That is not an
Embarrassing.
exaggeration. Like 6, 7-year-old kids were
Just flailing.
faster than me over 25 meters. I was like, clearly this thing called swimming is a lot more than fitness, because I was fit, no technique, whereas
Mhm.
so I give an example. It's like in my mind, it's like golf. You want to put the ball in the hole, but you want to do it in one stroke, but it might take you 3, 4, 5, it might take you 10 or 12.
Mhm.
The concept of swimming is very simple, right? But to get your body to start doing what it's supposed to do, to be streamlined, not sinking legs. But you know what? I committed to it. I hired a coach. I was in the pool 6 days a week.
Mm,
And about 3, 4 years later, I was a legit swimmer.
mm,
And I'll tell you, that process of going through that, it was so difficult to be
mm,
able to do it. It was so humbling. But I
mhm,
also knew my nervous system's learning.
mm,
So the gratitude from that, and the joy, the happiness, the elation that I experienced. And then I got to do this thing that I love to do called triathlon,
mm,
because it's 3 sports, right?
mhm.
And to be able to actually go through that. So it's like that doesn't end for us.
Right.
And the piece that I'll share is, we talked about, the last years, few to several years being challenging for a lot of people. And one of the things I just kept saying to myself, keep your energy, your life force flowing through your nervous system high. I always say to people, when that voice and vision on the inside is louder and clearer than the noise, the opinions of all the crap on the outside, you have a level of mastery within yourself. So for me, I really focused every day, Joby, on being able to cultivate that energy within me. And that's this exact same thing that I did with, all my clients in my practice. I do a lot
Mm,
of coaching, consulting. It's like, look, you can't worry about that if you
mm,
have no control of that.
mm.
Like people can complain about, I don't know, who's in power for government, et cetera, et cetera. And I get it. But to me, it's like, there's nothing I can do to remove that person and replace them.
Mhm,
So it's like, for me, it's just kind of wasted energy. What can I control right here, right now in this moment?
mhm,
And for me, it's been about that. So, when I say like, yeah, things are pretty awesome for me, there's a reason for that, because I got to focus on me and
mhm,
cultivate me and nurture me and
mm,
find the things that allow me to grow, me to evolve, me to develop. And, that's both personal, professional. I have a young family and all the things that bring me incredible joy. Like my 9-year-old, she loves hockey. That was my sport growing up. I played hockey for 25 years when I retired when I was 28. I'm head coach of her hockey team. We're on the ice 5 days a
Yay.
week, 5 a.m.
Nice.
practices.
Oh god.
I love it. I
You
love
love it.
it, dude. But
You're a morning guy though, right?
I'm a morning guy, but I love it, dude. Like,
Yeah, that's
dude,
great.
Joby, the time that I get to spend with my 9-year-old daughter in the vehicle, one-on-one, being able to connect with her
Mm,
is priceless. And that even opened me up to my older daughter to be like, I need to balance this out, because with my older daughter, my younger daughter wasn't around. So I got that one-on-one time for a
yeah.
solid she wasn't born until she was 3, but, even at age 3, 4, 5, I got like 5 years of strong one-on-one time with my eldest, where I didn't kinda get that with my second, because my
Mm,
eldest was always around. And then I realized, "Oh, man, this is priceless."
mhm.
Being able to, like, so it's like that has nothing to do with the hockey, and just so happens I love, the game of hockey, and, I was jaded by hockey. I didn't watch hockey, didn't know I had anything to do with hockey for 20 years
Mm,
until, my 9-year-old fell in love with it and started playing, and then, just brought that back. So, like, what a gift. It brought
yeah,
back
totally.
the joy of me playing hockey as a little boy, not all the political stuff that I went through as a teen, young adult,
Mhm.
playing college, et cetera, and all that stuff that unfortunately enters high level sport.
Yeah. Yeah, and does
Yeah,
kinda jade you. I
yeah,
I was interested because we just kinda started the conversation where it started. For those listening who don't know you, you're a chiropractor or, an author. You've completed 7 Ironman.
actually 10 now, 10.
Holy smokes.
Yeah,
A father, public speaker, and on and on and on. But I read your book because I came to see, well, we got to know each other because our kids were in the same school. And then we
right.
went through the COVID experience, got closer there.
Yeah,
And I got your book because I remember I was struggling with chronic insomnia, which was like insane 10 years of my life. And I remember reading your book, and it was a long time ago, but I was surprised by the kind of journey. Because when you meet someone, it felt like you were at the top of your game, and then oh, this guy came from somewhere.
yeah,
What was this fast track? Like you started,
yeah,
like what brought you to this place of just being a really positive guy and
yeah,
doing all of this, achieving all of this?
yeah. Well, let me give the 90-second version of my story.
Yeah.
I was born in Britain. My family migrated to Canada. I was raised in the poorest postal code in Canada in the 70s.
Mm,
And my parents were kind, loving factory workers. And so I share that because they spent all their time working, trying to put food on the table, roof over their head, my head, and my brother's
mm,
head, the 4 of us. And as a result of that, I wasn't really parented, I was parented, meaning, I was a classic latchkey. I'd go to school, parents were gone. I'd come home for school, parents were gone. They wouldn't get home. I could remember even one summer, my brother was 7 and I'm 4, and we have 8 weeks in the summer. We're by ourselves all day, every day.
no way.
Oh, yeah. Like, make
Yeah.
your own breakfast, make your own lunch, make your own dinner.
Yeah.
This was summer holidays. You hop on your bike and there's like 20 kids lived in our street.
Those are
Um,
the days, man.
those are the days, right?
And nowadays
And
you get your parents that have been reported.
yeah, totally. Well, actually, my brother had a bike crash. One summer he got hit by a car, and the cops were like, "You can't have these kids home alone like this." And we've been doing this for like 4 summers already. We're like, seriously, we're like pros at this. I was 4 years old with,
Yeah.
my brother and I just took care of each other.
Wow.
And so, long story short, being in a very underprivileged community environment, crime, violence, addictions. That's what was around me. And that's what got into my perceptual lens. And I just made a series of immersing myself into that environment. I made a series of choices that did that. I got involved with crime, violence, addictions, gangs, drugs, starting at about age 11.
Mhm,
And again, making a longer story even short, I hit rock bottom when I was 18 years old.
mhm,
And, it's interesting, Joby, when you get to a place in your life, working with a lot of people are experiencing pain, physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain.
mhm,
I've experienced all the above. The physical pain, I was doing what the good docs told me to do. I was on the meds and drugs, nothing worked, fatigue, body pain. Mentally, emotionally, I struggled with depression, anxiety. I was suicidal, multiple suicide attempts. It's interesting when you get to a place in your life when the thought of leaving this world becomes more appealing than actually staying. And
mm,
I've experienced that.
mhm.
And in my last suicide attempt, I was in a borderline drug overdose state, trying to blow my head off with a sawed off shotgun, and the safety clip saved my life. like couldn't
Wow.
figure out how to pull the trigger in that overdose state. And then when I had that failed attempt, there was a little part of me that wanted to stay here a little bit more than the part of me that wanted to leave here.
Mhm.
And for me, that was like my rock bottom. And I was 18 years old. I'm 52 years old now. Um, and I just made a decision at that point that I was just going to change my life and open up my life to something better. Meaning, my friends were brothers to me. I loved them incredibly. They loved me. I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for them. By the time I was 18 years old, I'd been to 9 funerals of friends that were murdered. It was a pretty crazy environment. But in that moment, I just decided I wasn't going to do that anymore.
Mm.
I was going to say goodbye to that life because that was my only path out because I was either going to end up in jail or dead. That was the direction because I was so involved with that. And that was probably one of the most difficult decisions I've ever had to make. Like, it really was,
To decide to live or decide to just change your
to
life?
change my life,
Yeah.
because I'm deciding to live, but I'm deciding to say goodbye to what got me here.
Yeah, all your
'Cause I knew
friends.
it was that. It was clear, like, the choices I'd made, where it was going. I mean, 18, age 14, I couldn't leave the house without a loaded gun. Like, really, you know what I
Mm,
mean? It's like
mm.
that's the hostile environment I was raised in. And again, at nobody's fault, these were the choices that I made. I take full responsibility for it. And in the same way, I was like, I just need to change. I didn't know what that was. And, we're going back. So this is 1991, pre-internet, you can't Google stuff. And I ended up just like walking the neighborhood. And eventually I found myself going to the library. And like literally this book had fallen off the wall. Literally, I walked by an aisle and this book fell off the aisle. It was crazy.
Mm.
And I walked back and like I see this book on the ground. I walk back and I pick it up. And at that time, I was a very strong atheist. I now consider myself a very spiritual person. So, I'm not like, oh, the universe has spoken to me. I wasn't that. I was just like, what the hell? Like this book just fell
Yeah.
down, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like this apple falling off the tree, an apple of enlightenment. So I just like picked up the book, and the title of the book was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I grabbed the book, I picked it up, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I sat down in the library and I started reading that book. And every single day I went back, I didn't even have a library card at the time. I would go back to the library and I read that book cover to cover, and it opened me up to a world I did not know existed previously. And to me, that's where things started to change. I dropped out of high school when I was 14. Eventually,
Was Think and Grow Rich like rich life or rich wealth, money?
it was a book. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill it was written like, it was like old English. It was written like in the 1920s or 30s. It was one of those
Mm.
kind of books. It talked about spirituality, it talked about consciousness, it talked about the universe. It put this concept of like God in words and verbiage that at the time resonated with me, and didn't use the word God, if you
Yeah,
will.
that was
And
triggering.
my parents were Sikh, so
Mhm.
I'd been to the Sikh temple. This concept of religion and God was very much in my ecosystem, but I was like, "Oh, religion's for weak people who can't think for themselves."
Mhm. Mhm.
That was me as a tough teenager, so
Mhm.
that was not me. I was like, "What you see is what you get."
Mhm.
So, when I meet people like that today, I get it. I used to be that person, and for a lot of them, they're like me, they're wounded, they're jaded,
Mhm.
with that. So yeah, like I decided to get my life back on track. And up until then, I thought I was a moron because that's what the teachers told me, which is why I dropped out in grade 9 when I was 14.
Mhm.
Got myself into night school and I did grade 9, 10, 11, 12 in 16 months.
Wow.
And, everything from, biology, English, math, chemistry, physics. Like I just focused 16 months. That was my life. Got myself into college.
And by this
Um,
point, you've shed all the drug dealing, gang stuff. It's
Gone,
like you've
gone,
turned your back on it.
gone. I was on a deep, deep, like,
And you probably
again,
lost a lot of friends, right?
I lost all my friends.
Yeah,
I didn't
lonely.
have a single friend. I
Yeah,
lost all my friends.
yeah.
Nobody that like, this is a time of pagers, right? Like you
Yeah,
page someone your number and they call you back on the
from a payphone.
landline, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or payphone, yeah. Um, yeah, after 2 months, I got rid of my pager because no one's paging me. I had
Mhm,
no friends.
mm,
Like, it was over until I started going to college and, college university was interesting because I was still so deep on that healing path. The depression, the anxiety was still there. And, it's a time where you can't like Google. Well, I did everything the good doc Allopath told me to do. This is when I lost my faith in our
mm.
healthcare system. Was when I was 18 years old. I'm like, this healthcare system's a joke because I was failed by it. Um,
How come?
eh, sorry.
How come? How were you
Well,
failed?
because like when I started getting anxiety, depression, this and that, I started taking the meds, doing the stuff that they were telling me to do.
Mm,
Anti-anxiety, like all those things. I did everything the good doc told me to do, and I just got worse and worse and worse. So, it's my polite way of saying, I haven't taken, drugs, meds since I was 18 years old. Obviously, it's been a big part of my life understanding what they do in your body, studying physiology, eventually going to chiropractic college. But I had an interest. I was always an athlete as a kid. I had an interest in human movement, physiology. So that's what I studied. And then I started working with a chiropractor that was working with the nervous system in my early 20s for my healing and health journey. And it's the only place I really started to get traction. And that's when I'm like, oh, this nervous system stuff is interesting. So now we're going back to like 1993, 1994. And that's where I really made a commitment to be like, I just really want to understand how this mind body thing works and what this elusive thing called the human spirit actually is.
mm,
And I was just genuinely curious.
yeah.
But, that was pretty much like 11 years of my life, 3 different degrees, educating myself deep on my own personal healing journey. So, your question was, and I know I answered it pretty long. How did you become this guy that just looks at the world optimistically and what's possible? That was the journey. And really what it was, Joby, was it all came from my understanding of the nervous system. Like when I think about, people say, what's your shtick? And I'm like, well, I'm all about health, healing, and human potential because that's what the nervous system wants.
So just to be like, clear, I know you talked a lot about the nervous system, and it's one of those words that said and then just kind of bounces off you because you're like, yeah, I still don't quite understand. You can't see it, right? You can't. Is the nervous system like this spirit, this kind of force?
So
You've
the
got your
nervous,
veins, your brain, your
yeah.
skin, your bones.
So let's talk about the nervous system.
Yeah.
So the nervous system is a structure that I actually dissected on cadavers while I was in school. So it's real. It's real tangible. The same way like this is my fingernail.
Right.
It's not this etheric thing. So the nervous system is your brain. There's a tail of the brain called the spinal cord that exits your brain, goes down,
Mhm.
and our body created all these little bones to protect the nervous system because it's very delicate, but also wanted us to move. So rather than creating a single bone, it created a series of bones called vertebrae, put a hole in those vertebrae, and like a hose, that spinal cord moves all the way down into our sacrum pelvis. And then exiting those vertebrae, the nerves go on to connect to every single cell. And the human body, depends on what you read, is made up of about 50 to 100 trillion cells. Like right now, I'm talking. Right now, I'm moving my hands. Their message is going from my brain spinal cord out to my hands, telling them to move, telling my lips to move, create sound, look
Mhm.
certain ways, and back to my brain faster than the speed of light. All of this is regulated and controlled by my nervous system. Now, the nervous system is an information highway. That's it. It's a highway. If you have a highway with no cars, I call that a dead highway. There's no cars on it, right? Dead
Mhm.
highway.
Mhm.
If you have a nervous system that is not conducting electricity, that is a dead person. And like all the masters of killing understood this. Like, the
Um,
English, if they wanted to kill someone, they would hang someone. Why? Because when you fracture the first vertebrae, it severs the spinal cord and the electricity can no longer move through the body. They're dead.
yeah.
The French, they had the guillotine. Chop a
Mhm,
guy's head off, no more electricity. They're dead.
mhm,
Martial arts, I studied martial arts for 17 years growing up. Punch someone here, fracture, C2, there's something called the odontoid. It fractures the spinal cord. No more electricity. You're dead. You get the point.
yeah,
Samurai, they don't chop the arm off, the leg, they chop the head off.
yeah.
No electricity. So the real tangible things is the nervous system is like an electrical wire. And just like an electrical wire, if there's no electricity flowing through it, we call that a blackout. We can't turn on our power, our lights, etc.
Mm,
Same thing with a human being. But with a human being, it's not black or white.
right.
You can have 100% flow of this electrical impulses, and that is a very remarkable, connected, robust, healthy human being. Or you can have 10, 20% flow of that electrical impulse. So
Mhm,
it's kind of gray, or 30, 40%. So you get an attenuated version of that. It's like the stove can't go on as strong. The lights aren't so bright. They're a little bit dimmer, if you
mhm,
will.
mhm,
So that's what's real. We have a real nervous system and electricity flows through it. So now we'll make the leap into physics and quantum physics. And, based on other disciplines, whether that's looking at quantum physics, looking at, the bigger question of like, what are we? Why are we here? I believe those electrical impulses, Joby, is the essence of who we are. When I say I don't refer to my right shoulder, my right arm. When I say I'm referring to the energy, the electricity flowing through my nervous system. So I call that the human spirit. I call that the life force that animates my cells and tissues. Because, like I said, without it, I'm dead. And with it, I'm alive.
mm,
And there can be a certain, based on the volume meter of how dead and alive somebody is.
mm,
So what's real is the electricity. How I refer to that electricity, I refer to it as the life force and intelligence that animates every cell, tissue, organ, that animates what I call this mind body temple. And I've spent my entire career professionally, I've spent my life personally learning how to cultivate and nurture to turn up the volume meter on that life force and intelligence. So that's kind of my shtick. That's what I'm about.
yeah, no, that really helps me, visualize, 'cause I'm a visualized person, like, put this in, like, real
Yeah.
picture, like a picture, and then somewhere sprinkled in there is our personality, which no one else has, right? Like, it's like your very own, one of a kind, never been like this before personality. Um, where's that fit into it?
So interesting. So based on my study, okay, a lot of my teachers, mentors. So how are we developed? Every single one of us was developed inside our mother's body. And
Yeah.
if we get into the neurobiology of this whole thing, our mom's nervous system inside her reproductive organs took a cell, egg from herself, and a
Mhm.
cell from dad. They interacted, conception. And in about 40 weeks later, those two cells develops into 100 trillion cells and hits the eject button, and we're born. So think about this for a moment. The first thing that has to develop from those two cells is something we call the human notochord, which develops into the human nervous system. But mom has a nervous system, and our nervous system is our perception system. So we'll take it a little further. What we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and that gut feeling is how our nervous system makes sense of our environment to create internal biological adaptation. If this cup is a hot stove, I'm going to put my hand here. My nervous system makes me pull my hand away reflexively and then sends a message to my brain saying, silly, that's hot. You don't want to touch that because you're going to burn yourself. So, without getting too deep into neurophysiology, that's my polite way of saying our mom's nervous system has an influence on our development. and her life experience. And I know this clinically where mothers are having their own mental, emotional, physical challenges and children are born. So that's my polite way of saying we have genes and chromosomes that interact, and the greater diversity of those genes and chromosomes, that's why, we don't want to create children with our relatives because there's less diversity. The more diversity there is, the more opportunity for that nervous system to develop into a whole, healthy human being. 50% of that personality is fully developed the moment we're born. The other 50% happens through the perceptual lens of the nervous system and the concept that I call epigenetics. Epigenetics was developed by the understanding of it by Dr. Bruce Lipton. Different than genes and our understanding of genes in the Human Genome Project. In the Human Genome Project, they said genes are destiny. That's not correct. It's like, for example, you work with renovations. There could be a blueprint of how a house is built. That's what a gene is. It's like a blueprint. But when you get to the house, you realize, shit, this wall, it needs to be like 3 feet this way. So you kind of ignore the blueprint and physically move the wall. Do you see how you've changed the blueprint? That's what genes are. Epi means there's something above the gene. Epi is you. The nervous system, the intelligence life force is a consciousness that's above the gene that allows certain genes to be turned on and turned off.
Manipulate them.
Manipulated based on that. Like if you're in an environment where your nervous system isn't safe, let's say the environment I grew up in, it wasn't safe. It was a really hostile environment. So my epigenetics coded, you need to be tough, you need to be strong, you need to be aggressive, you don't let people push you around. And that's what I grew up with pretty much since I was 4 years old. Of course, my perception of reality led me to choices when I was 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old that got me into a crap load of hostile environments based on that upbringing. So that was a part of my personal reality, which developed into my personality. So 50% when we're born, there is a foundation. The other 50% through epigenetic forces, our personality develops. And which is really interesting, we have the capacity to change that. Like 50% is a lot. Like we can actually change who we are, what our interests are, what we enjoy doing. I'm not going to say it's easy to do. It's easier said than done. It's quite a difficult process to change who we are. But being
like a
able to do
renovation,
that,
right? It's difficult and time consuming, but it can be done.
It completely can be done.
Where does trauma fit into this picture? Because trauma is such a word that's being used on such a massive scale now. And, my wife's learning to be a breathwork practitioner. I've got physical, we've all got trauma. Somehow, if you've got your original operating system and then the stuff that your mom was going through then downloads to you. So it seems like these curtains are put in front of the core operating system that we're supposed to run on, which seems to me like that's where you're trying to get people to operate out of.
Correct.
Trauma seems to be right at the front. It's like the filter that when you come running at me, I either hold my arms out to give you a hug, or I put my fists up because I think you're coming to punch me. Like there's two different responses there that come in from what I know out of your lived experience or the trauma that you've experienced.
Right.
What's your thoughts on trauma in the whole
picture? I have more than thoughts. In fact, my whole thesis is trauma. Like it literally is. And I hope that you're understanding, and if anyone was listening to this, that I come from trauma. I mean, trauma is my middle name. I know trauma, I understand trauma, and I lived in trauma for decades of my life. So it's a very dear friend of mine. So this is where we have to make the leap. So I look at the nervous system, neurophysiology. This is like the letters behind my name give me the authority to call myself a specialist in this. Now, in order to understand this, Joby, what I had to do is I had to understand experiences and what stress is. So then I had to delve into physics and eventually quantum physics. So this is a triangle I live in: quantum physics, neurology, physiology. This is kind of my world. So I'm going to explain trauma inside this triangle. Physics says every experience, well, first of all, physics says everything can be broken down to a proton, electron, neutron, going back to our high school science class. And protons, electron, neutrons are atoms that vibrate. And it's my polite way of saying they're energy. And based on the vibrational frequency of an atom determines the level of organization that matter takes. You increase the frequency of atoms far enough and we become animate objects. You lower the frequency, we become concrete like the sidewalk outside. Everything's made of atoms. The molecular structure determines how that occurs. Now, let's take it a step further. Experiences are nothing more than atoms as well. Somebody cuts you off in their car. Someone gives you the middle finger. Someone punches you in the face. Somebody hugs you. Someone tells you, I love you. These are all energetic experiences coming in to our perception system, our nervous system. At any given moment, our nervous system has a bandwidth, okay, capacity. When you have a bandwidth and capacity, there's experiences within your bandwidth, like you just drank a glass of water, that's within your bandwidth. If I was sitting next to you and I decided to punch you in the face, that would probably be outside your bandwidth. You'd be like, dude, what are you doing? Right? Or, like something happens, abuse, physical, mental, emotional, chemical, sexual, outside our bandwidth. And I'm gonna define these three things outside of our bandwidth. If it's a little bit outside our bandwidth, stress. Okay. It can be like work. Nothing really happens at work, but the daily grind of it built up over months and years is a little bit stressful. I call that stress. If it's a little further out, it might be like a car crash where you have to miss work for several weeks. It could be like a teenager breaking up with their boyfriend, girlfriend. Let's call that a little T trauma, a little bit further out. So here's our bandwidth, here's stress, here's little T trauma further out. Then we have capital T trauma. These are the big dogs. I have a lot of capital T trauma. Anyone who's had abuse, capital T trauma. So any input from the world of physics, it's bioenergetic, the nervous system says, okay, this is a gift. Yeah, I actually have to say that all my trauma was a gift. This is a gift because the nervous system, when I started reading spiritual texts like the Bhagavad Gita and things like this, it talked about this notion of oneness versus this notion of duality. Duality is how our prefrontal cortex splits the world into right, left, right, wrong. Oneness is everything's just one. There's no right or wrong. There's no good, bad. Everything just is. And that's the world quantum physics lives in. And that's actually the world our nervous system lives in. On top of that, when there's an input that comes in, whether it's a little stress, little T trauma, capital T trauma, the nervous system has 7 little brains within the autonomic nervous system. I can name them: superior, inferior, mesenteric plexus, adrenal plexus, heart plexus, thyroid plexus, pineal plexus, pituitary plexus. These are the back pocket of the autonomic nervous system. When the nervous system, our body or mind, experiences stress, little T, capital T trauma, it takes the information because it lives in the world of oneness and it says, this is an opportunity for me to learn and grow, to go through neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, so I can be beyond the challenge. This is interesting when I was learning about this, because what I also learned was the nervous system doesn't know the difference between the past, the present, and the future. It lives right here, right now. If we've had a trauma that happened 20 seconds ago, 20 minutes ago, 20 years ago, there's a part of your autonomic nervous system living in the biology of the original experience. If I'm 15 years old and I'm walking down the street and I got my hand on my loaded gun because I'm scared someone's going to shoot me in my back, and I haven't integrated that, now I'm walking down the street with my 9-year-old daughter through the park and I'm scared someone's going to shoot me in the back, because I haven't integrated that trauma. My nervous system is in a deep sympathetic tone. It has a dorsal vagal response. I'm releasing cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline. And that's an environment for cells and tissues to degenerate and break down. To me, stress, little t trauma, capital T trauma, is the reason we experience symptom, sickness, disease in our bodies.
So we had physics, we had quantum physics. Trying to understand quantum physics still.
Yeah.
That's the...
Took me about a decade and a half.
Yeah, we hear it now with quantum computing, right? And it just seems like quantum computers are a life force that they're creating. It's like, what is this quantum thing? Because it's becoming more and more common in our vocabulary. Yeah. So that's the experience.
So this is like the nervous system just wants to learn and grow, and it'll keep you in the biology of it until you learn and grow and adapt. But what happens with most people is, we listen to this model of disease management and we just take a pill to get rid of the discomfort of the emergence of the physical, mental, emotional taps on the shoulders telling us we need to heal, process, integrate this. And it's trying to slow us down. Instead of a glass of wine every night, we got to go to half a bottle or a bottle. Instead of that cup of coffee in the morning, that midday low energy fatigue, now we got to have 2 more cups of coffee midday to get through the day. Mm-hmm. And Eastern cultures, I'm from India. I spent a year living in India. They don't do this. When they live more in the spiritual realms, they listen to the intelligence of their body. They slow down. They take time off. They integrate. They heal. They process.
So hard to do.
It's so hard to do. It's like, we know this. It's like, if we have a challenging experience and we've just experienced it, someone was screaming, yelling at us. And now, somebody in our family is like, are you okay? What happened? You're like, I'm just processing. What just happened? Like, time heals everything. And so my whole protocol is like about how the nervous system works, how we can get people to process and integrate those traumas, move through them. And, I've been doing this for 25 years. And here's the thing. It doesn't happen overnight yet, and we've been domesticated, brainwashed into a system that doesn't follow cell biology and regeneration. Take a pill, feel better the next day. If you don't, must not work. It's not how our biology works. If we shave our head and someone says, I want long hair, I'm like, great, it's going to take you a couple of years to grow that hair down your butt. There's a notion of cell regeneration that takes place. But when we start changing our lifestyle, who we're being, how we're showing up, my life is living proof of it. It took me about 10 years, all through my 20s into my 30s, to fully heal all my trauma from my upbringing.
You think you're fully healed from that?
Well, it's interesting because, here I am at 52 and stuff still comes up.
Yeah.
And I can smile at it, laugh at it. What I'll say is my bandwidth is huge. I have a much bigger bandwidth tolerance. I'm very resourceful, very solution oriented, but I also have the tools, the space. I have the lifestyle to create that. And I know how to get my nervous system into a coherent state to process.
I often think like trauma, there's physical trauma too, which I've had a lot of.
Yeah.
And the scars never heal on my body, I get stronger. I go to the gym and I can rehabilitate myself, but the scar never goes away. And I think that I'm just looking at the big scar on my wrist right here, like big 12-inch scar. It reminds me, maybe you shouldn't take that big jump on your mountain bike in your 50s, right? Yeah. And so I think that these traumas, like you say, can be turned into a positive where they give us guardrails or something. Have you ever heard of that? Someone told me about this the other day, I think it was Tara actually, like when a deer gets hit by a car, what happens to it?
Yeah, I don't know.
So a deer gets smoked. It will go off into the forest and it will get the shakes and it'll just vibrate. And it will find a quiet spot, if it doesn't die, obviously, and it's not got broken legs. It will find a quiet spot in the forest and it will, I think about 12 hours, will just sit there and just shake. And then after it's done, it will then get up and just go back to its living. And that is, it's been traumatized. It goes and finds a quiet spot. It lets the trauma flush right the way through it. That's the shaking.
Yeah.
And then it gets up but I think what we do as Western humans is we get hit by a car. We're like, I think I'm still good. It's like we're in battle. Like, and you just keep marching forward. Yeah. That's the way I've done all throughout
Well,
my
that's what
life.
that's
You
what that's what we've been taught,
just keep
right?
moving forward and don't show pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And to here's my theory on the deer scenario. So if we step into this difficult etheric world of quantum physics and just embrace the concept that everything's energy, everything's atoms. So like energy was in a car, it's going 80 kilometers an hour. That energy hits a deer. So it now has all these atoms going 80 kilometers an hour locked in its biology. And it's locked in certain places. If it locked too much, it would break a bone. That's like all the force going. I mean, that's the concept of helmets, right? Like my
mhm,
daughter wears a hockey helmet. And that's because if a force goes here, the helmet dissipates all the force around her head. So she's not going to have a contusion right there. Same thing, right? So now when the deer shakes, it's integrating all that energetic input from the tips of its ears to the tips of its feet.
mm,
So all of that energy integrates processes through the system. And if it's successful, it'll go on to live a great life. And if it's not, it might not. It might have locked in a vital organ. It might have internal bleeding. It might have broken bones, etc.,
mhm,
depending on the impact, how it got hit. Um, but you're right. So like that time, it's like healing. Like when you're healing, rest is time well spent. Being in nature is rest and time well spent.
mhm.
And I think in the last few years, I'm seeing a lot of goodness in the world where people are moving out of cities into more nature. This sun is like blasting me wide open here,
Yeah, it's,
like
it's cool.
blasting me.
It's, like, super toned.
So when we start to like just kind of honor and respect how we're built, and I call this our mind body temple, honor and respect how our mind body temple is built and turn off this notion of how we ought to be in this society and start to be guided by this. It's like every ache, every pain, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's emotional, I believe is a tap on the shoulder from the intelligence that we are asking us to look at something, asking us to process something,
Mm,
asking us to integrate something,
mhm,
which to me is like healing. So, you've asked me, I can come to that question. Have I healed everything from my upbringing? No, I don't think I have.
mhm.
Um, I know there's remnants of it there. I know there's pieces there. I know the choices I make raising my children. Like ignorance is bliss. Like I know how shitty we as humans can be to each other. I know what's out there. I have two
Mhm,
daughters,
mhm.
and part of me being their dad is their protector. And so yeah, you bet. I'm going to make choices so they're not going to be in situations where they're going to have to experience what I experienced. And so I can't help but think, yeah, that's safety, but there also is a bit of trauma there too.
Yeah, and I think that it keeps us humble, right? Like, someone said to me, I don't that there's an old Bible story where Jacob, I don't know if you've heard the story of Jacob's ladder, where he has a dream and there's this ladder going up to heaven.
I know the
And he
movie.
Right, and he wrestles with God, right? And God
Yeah,
touches his hip, and for the rest of his life, he walks with a limp.
right.
And I heard a preacher, because I grew up in a very religious background, and I heard a preacher once say, "I don't trust any man who doesn't walk with a limp." And I think that there is something about healing from our trauma, but still being acquainted with our trauma that keeps us um, so we're not us and them. It's like, because as
Yeah,
soon as we lose that empathy, it's
yeah,
like we've become a god, an untouchable. And I think that, yeah, walking with a limp shows this man's been through something.
yeah,
Yeah, he wrestled with God and survived.
yeah. I
But
get that.
what you were saying about taking the time to heal. I mean, it from my lived experience, it is so hard to stop. Like, I find it so hard to stop. Like, I think that if I actually analyze what's going on inside me, it's fear. It's fear that if I stop, the bills won't get paid. I think this, from when I've like listened to myself and trying to understand what's going on in my own head, because I do plow forward like a machine. You know, you can change your environment, but your demons just follow you there. Like, we
Correct.
moved out to
Yeah,
the country,
yeah.
and there was this like honeymoon period where everything was just like, and then all of a sudden your demons catch up with you again. It's like,
Wherever
yeah,
you go, there you
you
are, right?
you left town, but we found where you're living and we're back.
Yeah,
And for me, I've done a lot of self-inquiry, and I'm far from being healed in this area, but um, it feels like I've made the math in my head like this. Maybe this is part of the quantum stuff that goes on. These lessons that we learn is like worry equals breakthrough. If I worry enough, the last time I worried, I made payroll. So when payroll comes, my body's like, get into worry mode. Worry, worry, worry. Oh, made
Right.
payroll again. And
Yeah.
so that becomes, and so when I take a day off, I get panicky inside, like anxiety rises up in me when I'm not creating, because I think that my nervous system has told me hard work, it's all about hard work. You just work, 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 and it kind of numbs me out. It's almost like a drug in a way. It like numbs me out. And to go for a walk on the beach is like pulling teeth. I mean, it's like I'd rather cold plunge.
Yeah.
Because you have to, you know that after you've done it, it feels great, but just stopping. And sometimes I think that these accidents that I've had, because I've had a string of near fatal accidents, even like 3 since I've moved here, to the point where they recognize me at the ER, which is terrible. You're like,
That's
dude, we need to give you a punch card.
is that what they said?
Did you hear about the one?
Dude, I haven't heard a thing. I have no idea.
Okay, so the first one, when I moved to the island, I got wound up in a farm auger on the back of a tractor.
Wow.
So I have in my left arm here, I have massive lacerations all up my arm. Um, it almost pulled my arm right off my body.
And sorry, what was that? A farm what?
So it's an auger. You know when
Okay.
they're drilling holes for fences? There's
Yes.
like an auger. You often see 2 people holding them, and they auger into the ground. Well, I had one on the back of a tractor.
Okay.
And on Thanksgiving afternoon, I decided to go and do some fencing down on the property. And Gabriel was with me. And he backed the tractor up. I placed the auger. We started it, and it's connected to what's called a PTO shaft in a tractor, which is, there is no stopping it.
Okay.
It's actually connected to the transmission of the tractor. So there's
Okay.
no clutch that, I'm under load, I'm going to stop. It doesn't
Right.
stop. And so I placed the auger in the ground, and we fired it up, and the previous owner had put fishing net for fencing around the property, and he had laid it he had let it just lie under the ground, and then the grass had grown up through it. So I didn't see it. And so as soon as it started spinning, it grabbed my boot, wrapped me around it, and wrapped me around the auger, and just started spinning me like this.
Oh my God.
And my arm went straight up like this and was being sliced like a box cutter on the shroud that covers the
Oh my
knuckle.
God.
And had Gabe not been there and had the calmness, because I think if Amelia had been there, my daughter, she would have just freaked out. She'd have frozen. But Gabe had the calmness to jump on the tractor. It was a 3-step process to shut the machine down and then run for help. And I'm lucky to be alive, because I literally felt like that was I had 2 thoughts go through my head. I thought, am I really going to go this way? And then I could see Gabe's face bright red in my eye as I was being spun around. And then I relaxed. I was like, this is it. And I just relaxed. And I think that probably relaxing is why I still have my arm.
Right. Wow.
So then I recovered from that. And then I fell 14 feet off a ladder and landed on my hands and my feet. So I scorpioned so that my feet touched the back of my butt. Went all the way back. Broke my back. But
What
the owner
levels? What levels?
of break, yeah, you would know this being a chiropractor, and I forget, but he was like, the doctor said it's the only break you can walk away from. It's like a compound, was it a compound fracture?
Was it like L spine or T spine?
I think T rings a bell.
Yeah, probably
lower.
T spine, mid back. In that position, probably be your mid back.
So I'm still recovering from that. Like right now, I have to have a really straight back, and I have lots of core exercises to try and rehabilitate.
Wow.
And then sprinkled in the middle of that, I was mountain biking. I got bucked off my bike and snapped my wrist.
That's the least of them, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got a plate in my wrist, and the funny thing is, it's all not so funny, but all of the accidents I've had throughout my life are on my left side of my body, which is supposed to be the feminine, right? I thought I had father issues, but turns out it's all mother issues.
There you go. Or it's you tapping more into that side, which is a lot of rest and relaxation. You need to do what Tara's doing more of.
Oh, yeah. And every time I have an accident, it forces me to relax. I'm like, what's the universe saying? It's like, dude, you're not listening to me, so I'm going to have to really slow things down for you. forcibly.
Well, that's what it is, right? Like a broken back, dude. That's like there's your bed.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was and I'm so grateful I'm walking and
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to hear that you're still alive and kicking.
so you own the, Center for Optimal Living where you do this practice, which I've been a patient of yours. What's different from the way you do chiropractic healing than your standard guy who twists your neck and cracks it and does all the
Yeah. My journey, Joby, has been understanding the neuroenergetics of how the nervous system flows information. And rather than looking for just a fixation in a joint, I'm looking for how that neural flow moves beyond the vertebrae in throughout the body. And my training has been understanding the volumes of the body and being able to deepen the connections through those volumes where cells, tissues, organs live. And like I said, the more you open up communication to those pathways, the whole body's brand new every 7 years. But if it's only getting 20, 30, 40% of the messages, 60% of the information is incorrect. And so one of the principles of moving the system to a higher level of homeostasis is cells, tissues, organs regenerate with the correct shape, structure, function. It's like, we all drive vehicles. The wheels on our vehicle are round. Imagine for a moment if the factory missed the memo and the wheels were square. That's really all illness, aches, pains, disease are. Cells and tissues are not getting the right information from the nervous system, so they don't have the right shape, which means they don't have the right structure, which means they don't have the right function, like square wheels. So with that, I'm not treating, fixing anything. I'm working with the nervous system and the stress or little t trauma or capital T trauma that's been engaged to the nervous system that's creating those cycles and patterns and helping the nervous system integrate and process them, deepening communication, cells and tissues regenerate, and then that bandwidth starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's really where people's quality of life starts to come back. So that's kind of my approach.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't do a lot of physical stretching and pulling, right? It's a lot of
Well, I don't
energy
do, I
based.
don't do you like, I still put my hands on people. I still touch people, but it's accessing the nervous system from very specific access points. As opposed to, when people hear about chiropractic, they just think it's all back cracking.
Mhm.
And actually what a lot of people don't know, there's probably about 3 dozen techniques in chiropractic, and about 2 dozen of them are kind of back cracking, and about a dozen of them are not.
Mm.
So there's like, so it's kind of like, if you see a dentist, you're kind of getting the same thing.
Yeah,
Like you see 10 dentists, they're going to look at your teeth. They're going to,
do the same
they're going
thing.
to clean them, fill a cavity, and it's all pretty similar. Um, you see a dozen chiropractors, you probably get a dozen different experiences.
Mhm.
And that's because there's different techniques and different philosophies within it. Yeah.
So
And they're
with
all
your
good. They're just based on there's different strokes for different folks.
yeah, and with your practice, it seems like you have to be really engaged spiritually in a way, like on another level. It's not like, "Okay, here's your thing, do this." You can be thinking of something else maybe,
Yeah.
but it seems like if you're gonna be doing energy moving and that type of you have to be hearing is that right? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. Like, I guess the analogy I'd give is it's kind of like Braille. Like if I gave you Braille, someone handed me Braille, it's like a bunch of dots. I don't know what this means.
Mm,
You hand a visually impaired person Braille, they're going to have a different experience, right?
mhm,
Because they've trained their nervous system to make those tactile stimulations on their fingers from the bumps on the page mean something more.
mhm,
So when we talk about that being engaged, this whole journey and process of 2.5 decades is getting my nervous system to feel the subtle forces and understand the language of the nervous system. This is not something I was born with. This is not a gift. It's simply a technique I've learned to nurture and cultivate the same way if somebody could see, all of a sudden couldn't see, they learned Braille. It's the
mhm,
exact same thing. And yes, that requires a certain level of awareness, consciousness of living life a certain way. Because if like, if I'm living off Big Macs and Coca-Colas, my nervous system is going to be fried.
Mhm.
It's going to be very difficult to tune in to someone's system.
Mhm.
Whereas if my nervous system is very clean and clear, it's an open channel to perceive what's going on with people.
Mhm.
So it's like a big part of that. I've coached and mentored so many practitioners over the past 20 years, and the ones that are willing to are able to facilitate the work are willing to do the work personally.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the vessel has to be
Has
somewhat
to
cleaned
be.
out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, with all due respect, it's like, it's like hiring a personal trainer to get ripped that's 60 pounds overweight. Who's going to do that?
Yeah.
That's what I always say. It's like, would you hire a personal trainer to get like shredded and lower your percent body fat if they're 60 pounds overweight?
Yeah.
They're like, probably not. I'm like, yeah. So, like, we subconsciously are doing this anyway, right? We it's not like we're giving people a report card, but if you're looking for people to improve your health, your well-being, your quality of life, we subconsciously will look towards different people who look like they're on the journey of that.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Have you seen an increase in with stress being the core reason of for a lot of this sickness since the and we started this conversation talking about technology.
Yeah.
Have you seen an increase throughout your career of just general anxiety and stress?
I haven't seen an increase. It's off the charts.
Yeah. It's
My
bonkers, right?
my work today is needed way more than it was 20 years ago.
And it's mostly because of this thing.
It's because of that, it's because of the uncertainty in the world and the dissemination of information through that device that's in your hand and what
Mm,
people lock their nervous system into all
mm,
day, every day.
mm.
Like, I don't know if that was recorded, but Joby messaged me on a social media platform, and my wife goes in there every few months to make sure I don't have any important messages.
Yeah.
And because I don't go on there. I don't go on. So I like I'm on social media, but I don't do the social media. Like, people listen to my lectures, talks. I have a copywriter, and she creates posts and things like that for me. But I'm never on there. I don't go on there to see how many likes this and that I have. But it was, I apologize, to you, Joe. Be my sorry, man. I never go on social media. Like, I
No,
don't. I literally don't. And
I'm always tipping my hat to anyone. Is it a conscious decision that you or you just never tried it, never
no,
eh,
conscious.
it's
No,
like, I know.
I remember I played around with it, this and that. I'm just like, honestly, this is garbage for me. There's nothing here for me.
Yeah, it's like a plate of cocaine, right? It's like, if
Yeah,
I've never done hard drugs because I know
yeah,
that it could lead to, and I think that these things, I don't
yeah,
know what kind of battles you're fighting with your children over it, but man, it's like, I mean, I've got 2 teenagers
yeah.
and,
It's off the charts.
I'm like,
Like,
we used to as kids, my parents would harp on me about leaving my bike out in the rain,
yeah,
coming in too late. Now, when did you last drive down a street and see lots of kids just like gangs riding around? Like they're all in their bedrooms playing.
yeah,
It's so sad.
yeah. It's an
Um,
interesting world we're living in. It's a very interesting world. Like, and for me, the piece that it is, I'm an athlete. It's a big part of my life comes through my physical body. I feel my spiritual connection comes through my physical body.
mm,
And my girls see me. I took an 8-year hiatus from racing, so that's where I did 7 Ironmans. Then when I turned 50, I did 3 more. And my last Ironman, I raced in Kona at the World Championships, which was just incredible. And to have my daughters and wife there was just awesome. And I do a lot less parenting, Joby, through advice, and I do a lot more parenting through just who I'm being.
yeah.
And, I'll give you an example. Like yesterday, I was just going for a workout, and, I asked Indira, my 12-year-old, I'm like, "Hey, I'm going for a workout to go get strong. Do you want to come?" She's like, "Yeah." So, we spent an hour lifting weights together, and I'm teaching her, showing her like how to do, lunges and,
Mm,
pull-ups and bench press and
mm,
all these good things. And I just can't help but think this is somehow going to allow her to be embodied and to,
mm,
you know, stay away from that stuff. So, like, versus me being like, "Hey, why don't you get off that?" It's like, "Hey, why don't we go do this instead?"
Yeah.
Is kind of my, I'm kind of a little more silent, as
Yeah,
a
you have to
parent.
give them an alternative, right? Because, I mean,
Yeah,
why would a kid wanna get off that? It's the most
yeah,
incredible
it's incredible. Yeah,
vortex to the whole world. Like,
yeah,
why don't you get off that? Well, it's kind of, I mean, I say that off, and it's like a silly question. It's like,
yeah,
why don't you stop eating chocolate cake? Because it tastes amazing. Why would I
yeah,
wanna stop?"
yeah,
You have to give them as like monkey see, monkey do.
yeah.
I'm encouraged by my teenage children who Raven and Jasmine, I literally lost them to those devices. They just checked out. I was like, "I've lost my kids," and I fought hard to try and keep them,
Yeah.
but it won the fight. But the encouraging thing is that in their 20s, they have come around to the point where my son Raven now has deleted every social media app, including Amazon, because he's like,
Wow.
I don't want to be manipulated by the worldview and all this stuff. I just want to be like, have my own thoughts, because he felt like his thoughts are being manipulated by all these things. And I was
Right.
like, what? And then my daughter is like, like journaling and meditating. And
That's
I
awesome.
asked her if she would run my company's Instagram page. I mean, literally, she was on her phone all the time as a child, you know? And, she's like, "Yeah, I don't wanna do that, Dad, because it just stresses me out. The app
Yeah.
just stre." And so, I'm hoping that people that are in it, um, it's like eating too much chocolate one day, like your life growing up. One day you looked around and
Yeah.
said, "I don't wanna be a gangster anymore.
Yeah.
I wanna have a better life than this." And
Yeah.
I'm hoping that humanity is incredible, and it will eventually, um want to shake it off and get back to, some kind of better existence, I think.
I believe that, like, I believe that. And I think that's the thing, with so much of this, the natural reflexive response, Joby, is to have the doom and gloom attitude. And the reality is the future is unwritten and uncertain. But what we have in this moment is the opportunity to focus on what we want to see more or less of.
Mhm,
And I'll share with you one of the things I do is I make a conscious choice to look at what I want to see more of, focus on what I want to see more of. And I
mhm,
think that's just the piece because, the same way people clean up their diets, what they put in their mouth, I clean up my sensory perception of what I bring into my nervous system. And that's the biggest reason why I'm not on social media
mhm.
because it's garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and and I'm inspired to model. I mean, when I'm on the phone, usually I'm working. It's work.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
not
I
like,
get that.
but
And
but I also realize my children don't know the difference. So
no, they don't.
when they come in from school and dad's sitting on the island with his phone, I might be emailing a client.
Yeah,
But to them, you're on this black box and not
exactly.
focused on me, and I feel
Yeah,
more and more pushed to, have an office, go to your office and do your work, and then when you come in and resurface into the family, don't be on a computer or device, because part of
yeah,
me thinks, well, if I'm gonna be working, I wanna be around my family,
right,
but I don't know if it's actually projecting the right type of thing, because
right,
they think, "Oh, when dad's inside, he's on that thing. I don't know what he's doing on that thing."
right,
And so I try and make it feel better for myself by saying, "Well, I'm making a living. This is what puts food on the table."
right.
Um, but I'm now thinking maybe I need to sequester myself, do the work, and then come out and
Sounds
be
like a great idea, man.
yeah. Yeah, I think that humans, like what you were talking just about how incredible our nervous system is, and it's amazing how we are so enamored by Elon Musk's creation of a robot.
Yeah,
And yet, the most incredible thing is what's staring back at you in the mirror, or
yeah,
nature. I mean,
yeah,
it like when I'm fixing things, my hands go in places that no robot could ever do. It can go around the bend and around the corner and find a little bolt and tweak it, and I
yeah,
mean, and we've kind of just got so used to it and accustomed to it that we're bored by it. And we're more enamored by a little robot that brings a guy a coffee on the street, or,
yeah. No, you're right. Yeah,
and
totally. Yeah.
there needs to be a big wake up. But cool, man. Well, we talked about a lot. What's one piece of advice you'd give anyone out there listening to, as far as a starting point, um, on a road to a better place?
Yeah. I believe based on how we're built and my understanding of the universe, Joby, is that, we are the conscious creators of our reality. Like,
Mm,
to me, that is not a philosophical statement, it is a biological statement. And, we have in our present moment the capacity to really focus on whatever we choose. And if one is not happy in their life, or one is seeking more joy, more vitality, more peace, it just starts with that one little decision right here, right now, and
mhm.
that choice. Oh, I believe everyone is a conscious creator, and it starts with that one little domino. And that one domino leads to another and another and another. And that has kind of been the script of my life since I was 18. I literally just focused on one domino. It went down, then the next one, and, here we are, what, 34 years later.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome, man.
Well, Suki, thanks for making the time.
Absolutely, man.
Looks like you're
Thanks for
burning up
having
there
me.
in the sun. It's beautiful.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Take care, my man.
All right, take it
Yeah,
easy. Say hi to the
bye.
family.
I will.
Okay, bye.
Bye.